Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Detox Talks Podcast, brought to you by Dr. Morse's Healing Herbs. In addition to our monthly webinars, we wanted to get a dialogue going based on our monthly body system and tackle some of the most common questions we get from our customers from each system.
This month, we're focusing on the musculoskeletal system, and there'll be therapeutic herbs for bone and muscle health, detox absorption protocols for optimal mineral absorption, and detox for bodybuilders. We'll discuss how Dr. Morse's formulas can be paired to support common bone, joint, and muscle imbalances, and end with tips for making your own herbal salve for bone and joint support.
So fun.
Yes.
Thank you all for joining us. I'm Colleen, and Jenn is my co-host. With our 20 years of collective experience working with Dr. Morse's formulas and practicing herbalism, we love getting to spend time spreading the good word about some of the most powerful detox formulas and protocols on the planet.
It's always fun, doing these things with you, Colleen, and sharing it with all of you.
It's too, Jenn.
Yeah, so let's get started and explore how you can support your musculoskeletal health with the help of our herbs and our protocols.
Amazing. Let's dive in. Okay.
Yes.
So we usually go with FAQs for this, frequently asked questions that we get through customer call-ins and through our health consultations. And so we want to really just start with connecting musculoskeletal system with general detox. And how does this system correlate with a detox protocol or connect to our whole mission here, which is helping folks detox?
Right.
And Jenn, I think you're the best to take this question because you've been doing this for so long.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people, when they think about the musculoskeletal system and detoxification, they're thinking about the idea of, building up, and detox is kind of, I don't want to, breaking down might not be the best way to put it, but, you're cleansing. But it really comes down to, when you think about both of them, the idea that they share is you're creating this environment for rejuvenation, honestly. A very key component to that is, believe it or not, absorption. It's not so much, well, how can we bulk up? How can we, how are we getting into the gut and really moving some junk out, the lymph system and all that? It really comes down to absorption, because you need to be able to absorb more than just, calcium. Your bones need, many trace minerals and whatnot to actually build that healthier bone, and also muscle tissue. As well. There's different muscle tissues, connective, there's smooth muscle, all of that. So you really need to be sure that you're taking in the proper nutrition, that your gut is, pretty much cleaned out, like with a good parasite cleanse and the pancreas support, together to help with the support, digestive enzymes that you already have in place without replacing them, what you already have, keeping your diet, clean and balanced, of course, according to your needs and your goals, whether you're just maintaining or building a bit, or if you are really looking for a deeper cleanse. And, it comes down to cleaning out the gut, making sure that you're clearing the space for that surface area, those little villi, for it to actually absorb the nutrition, get it into the bloodstream, get it to the cells so they can utilize it for, their functions. So really, how does that correlate to detox? Yeah, through absorption. You're creating that environment to build back everything that much better.
Yeah. And I think that this is the end point, right? Like you end up seeing imbalances in the musculoskeletal system. You end up seeing imbalances there in your bones and your joints and your muscles. Because, as Jenn's saying, because your absorption is blocked, because you're not able to truly get the nutrients out of the food that you're taking in, or you're not eating nutritious foods. This system is tied into detox because it's one of the places where the stuff shows up. When you need a detox and you're really feeling it, you're going to start to feel it in the bones. You're going to start to feel it in your muscles and joints. And
yes,
that's it. That's like, okay, something is missing here. Absorption. Absolutely. So a big part of that I wanted to also mention here is mineral-rich herbs, and how once we clear this absorption pathway that Jenn's talking about, once we do our parasite cleanse and we do our pancreas support formula to activate those enzymes and release them from the pancreas. So once we've kind of cleared out the digestive tract, then your absorption is optimal and you're really able to kind of have that that tissue of the small intestine is cleansed and ready to receive all these really great minerals from your food and from the herbs. And then those minerals can enter the bloodstream and head to the muscles and joints and head to the kidney and bladder and activate these systems and help clear them out. So what are some of our best mineral-rich herbs? They're dandelion, horsetail, nettle, deer antler, not an herb, but a really wonderful substance that we get from the earth sustainably, seaweed and alfalfa. So these are all really high in minerals. And, herbs in general, that's why as an herbalist, I think herbs are so powerful, is because they contain such a good complex of minerals. The ones I just mentioned are just really high in minerals. And so these we can take as teas, we can take them in the bone and connective tissue support formula, and they will end up being absorbed through the gut and enter the bloodstream and be delivered to the bones and the muscles. And that's kind of the idea there is bringing these in. And then also once they're in the blood, they go to the kidneys, and the kidneys are really nourished by these mineral rich herbs that really activate kidney function and support the kidneys in eliminating, which is their main purpose, and also fluid balance in the body.
And, those, like you were saying too, those mineral rich herbs, for building, we got to think about recovery too. Again, creating that environment for healing. So you think about it, your body is going through a lot of trauma, especially after, we've talked about it in the circulatory system, after
Totally.
You've been cut, the clotting phase that has to happen. So, it is called medically that inflammatory phase when the body's immune system activates. It's the trauma of surgery that's doing that, because the body, it has to distribute and send these nutrients, the oxygen, immune cells to the area of the wound site. So you'll see that swelling, the redness, and you'll have that discomfort. And depending on the level of, surgery required, that can take weeks for the body to really heal properly.
That whole wound healing process is so fascinating. If you're ever wanting to do a rabbit hole into the steps of wound healing, I've had to do it for classes I've taught in the past. And it's so interesting how, yes, when you first, open up a site on the body and the body needs to heal this cut, there's, the reason that the body becomes red and swollen is because those blood vessels are dilated to bring in more substances from the blood. And so in order for the muscles to be working and healing and the tissues to be healing, you need the blood to be rich, and that blood shows up at the site and really helps. And one of the first things it's starting to do is fill up that hole with collagen, the building blocks of keratin and skin cells. And fun tie-in here, brain and nervous system is one of our, it's not one I would normally think of for post-surgery, but it has gotu kola as the number one herb in this formula. And gotu kola, there's some really interesting studies that have come out about how it is, especially when taken internally, good at supporting the synthesis of collagen production, both type 1 and 3 collagen synthesis. So pretty fascinating. And, just one that you could throw in there with some blood support formulas and some bone and muscle tissue, like bone and connective tissue support, to really help nourish the blood to repair that site as fast as possible.
Yeah. It's pretty cool how multifaceted these formulas are to really overlap and address multiple body systems at one time. Might say brain and nervous systems on there, but when you look at the herbal ingredients, and that's why I think people appreciate what you do and explain it, because they can see, okay, there's more to it than this. We can, it gets kind of exciting. It's fun. And the body has everything it needs
so fun.
in place if we give it the right fuel, the clean stuff.
The right fuel. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And with gotu kola, that's just a great one you could take as a tea. It's a tropical herb, so it's hard to grow here unless you have a greenhouse in the northern hemisphere. But definitely a wonderful. I've seeked this one out when I've traveled in Asian countries. You can get it juiced, and it really strengthens the hair, skin, and nails. So carrot helps with that collagen synthesis is really helping with producing, supporting the production of keratin, and just kind of strengthening the body, the bone, the connective tissue. So gotu kola, definitely a big call out here for such an incredible herb. Awesome. Great as a tea. And we're not actually talking about this later, but so I might mention it here. We're talking about all these mineral-rich herbs. The best solvent for infusing minerals is water. And so making teas with these herbs is wonderful. And of course, all of our tinctures are also extracted with low alcohol. And so at around, I think I just looked it up the other day, it's somewhere in the vicinity of 30 to 40% alcohol, which means 60 to 70% is water. So the majority of our extract is water, and water is a polar solvent, and minerals are polar. So like attracts to like. And so all these minerals are really drawn to the water in the extract that we are producing. And also if you were to make a tea. So really activating and nourishing your blood with minerals from these herbs, and helping the kidneys. Really great to drink these as tea and in low alcohol tincture extracts. So fun fact there. And grateful to Dr. Morse too, a call out here for him, because he's just got such a great way of combining these herbs. And when I first joined the company, I was just so thrilled to see some of my favorite herbal allies in some of these formulas. It's like, yes, go
she
Dr.
did.
Morse.
She got excited, y'all. So
it's pretty cool.
Yep, indeed.
All right. So before we get too lost in the weeds here,
we do this. This is what happens when we get together.
This is what we do. Yeah. Fun fact, Jen and I were born on the exact same day, exact same year. So, we really resonate with each other on a cool level here. So we do want to talk about the anatomy and physiology of the musculoskeletal system for a moment. So what does the system comprise of? What makes up the musculoskeletal system? So it's our form. It's the form of the body. It's what allows us to not just be a big skin suit, and gives us solidity and allows us to march on the earth. And it is the bones, it is the muscles, it is the cartilage, the connective tissue, which we just talked about, the discs in your spine, and so bone and joint. And so its structure and its form. Mm-hmm. We talk about the cartilage. That's where any two bones meet, is where you're going to have that cartilage. Tendons are what hold the muscles to the bone. Discs in the spinal cord are softening, and same with that cartilage. A lot of that is for kind of absorbing vibration as we walk on the earth. And as we age, right, these things start to degrade a little bit. So how do we help with these kind of collagen boosting herbs? How can we help support the strength and dexterity and function of this system? So we're going to kind of break this down a little bit and go into herbs to support the muscles and the joints, and some common imbalances that come up within the system in this next little segment here. So I'm going to have Jen take it away with healthy immunity.
Yes. Kind of going back to almost the surgery part and helping your body heal. Yeah. Your immune system. You think about the bone marrow. This is where a lot of your immune cells are formed. So they interact directly with the bone cells. And then again, it all comes back to that healthy inflammatory response, which is still, and people are probably wondering, what about the lymph system? It's all connected to your lymph system. Remember, go back to the lymphatic webinar, the immune system is within that system, even though they kind of have some different functions. You still have to make sure you have a fluid balance in your body. Your kidneys are eliminating that fluid balance is important to the lymph and blood volume as well. And so that bone marrow comes in very important to your immune system, and also, the health of, the red blood cells, everything else too. When you think about muscle, even injury, and also where your amino acids are stored. Amino acids are the building blocks for everything, basically. Proteins. Your body actually can create a lot of them, but some you actually do need to get from, foods, which we know and understand is a lot of the plant proteins are the cleaner way to get those proteins, even though we're in a protein society of meat proteins. What is the amount of energy needed to break it down to be usable form to where, your muscles can build up, they'll store it, and they'll be part of, the immune response. That's where, again, absorption, diet come in. I hope people are seeing connections, within all of this and how important it is. But yeah, if you're not really, being able to utilize your amino acids properly, your proteins properly, that's a sign that there's a problem with the immune system too. That the bones, if you're not absorbing your nutrition properly, there's an underindication your immune system's going to suffer. So you can look at all these lab levels, everything else, look at how your body's responding, post-workout, post-surgery, any of that. And you can see, and you can kind of pretty much go back to looking at your lymph system, your kidneys, your gut, and seeing how all these things are operating. And you'll see that, malfunction probably with your immune system and why it needs support, why it needs these, mineral rich herbs, just so many levels of support that you can get naturally.
Yeah.
You got to keep putting the good in to get the good positive stuff out. So
speaking of the immune system and how do we get those and bringing the nutrients to the immune system, we're talking absorption, making sure that things are cleared. And so how do we build that bone? What are the herbs that are great for supporting strong bones? So we have our bone and connective tissue formula here, and we have our ultimate immune formula as well, because deer antler is in both of those. And deer antler, although it's not an herb, it is something that we actually source from folks that are pulling this off of the forest floor. We don't, there are places that farm deer antler because they're mostly using the velvet. We don't do that here. We have lots of vegan folks that are using our protocols. And so we actually work with folks that find the deer antlers once they've been shedded off the deer. They do this seasonally and they lose their antlers every year. And so they collect those and break that down. And it's still just really calcium rich and mineral rich, right? Because it's a bone. So it's helping to support the strength of bones and the building of bones. And alfalfa is tied in there too, really mineral rich. Kelp, dandelion, horsetail. I mentioned all these earlier. So taking those herbs is helping to support bone health. And that in turn is helping to support the production of those blood cells, those immune cells that are in turn going to then help strengthen the immune response.
Yes. Yeah. So besides the bone and connective tissue and ultimate immune, the healthy joint formula, I know it's called joint, but really, I think you and I have talked about it before. It's an overall, and Dr. Morse would emphasize it too. It's an overall systemic support for healthy inflammatory levels. So, he had to put a name on it at the time, healthy joint, and he would often pair that with the bone and connective tissue for, to ease some of those discomforts, especially as you're working to, strengthen the bones, the cartilage, all of that, and really hydrate from within. So to help that, immune response a little bit more and also keep those inflammatory levels kind of in check, this is a good formula to really help with that because of what would you say, the turmeric, cat's claw, devil's claw in there. I think everybody's familiar with turmeric, but cat's claw and devil's claw, I've actually heard those two come up quite a bit recently.
Not only with the healthy inflammatory levels, these also have a little bit of analgesic support. So they're supporting kind of bone and joint discomfort as well and taking the edge off a bit. So that formula, it's for the joints. It's for, folks that are aging and are just starting to feel a little bit more rickety. And it could be because you need to support healthy inflammatory levels and your levels of discomfort. I think it's a wonderful formula. I recommend it all the time.
Well, I know turmeric is awesome.
Okay, so then we've got the muscles. We've got, the musculoskeletal system is broken down into the skeletal system and the muscular system. And so within the muscular system, we want to support any discomfort there. And we have Spasm Calm for that. We're going to do the shout out to Spasm Calm. It's a really awesome formula. I've talked about it before in webinars because I also highly recommend this one for a lot of folks that have nervous system imbalances that tend to kind of go into panic mode, or even with acute respiratory spasms. I'm all over the map with the Spasm Calm formula because it can really help. It helps with smooth muscle, which is all the lining of all of your major organs are lined with smooth muscle, and this has a lot of herbs that are really supportive for kind of relaxing that spastic response. So I think Dr. Morse originally created this formula specifically for uterine spasms, but it really is just full body spasm. And that's all within the muscular system that you're having that spasm. That spasm is housed in the smooth muscles of the body. Okay. And so you've got cramp bark in this formula and skull cap. So cramp bark shows up in a lot of uterine spasm formulas. So that one's just a really common one that most women probably know, or uterine carrying folks usually know this herb already because they've tried it if they've experienced a lot of discomfort in their cycle. So cramp bark's in the
Yes.
formula. Skullcap is in this formula. I love skullcap. It used to be called Mad Dog Herb because was used for convulsions back in the day. Not so much anymore, but I put this in all my sleep time formulas because I love how it it helps support the relaxation of the muscles of the body. And for me, calming my body down is one of the biggest things I can do to help me fall asleep. So skullcap is a big ally for me there. We've got corydalis, same deal here with the corydalis as an antispasmodic, and lobelia is in this formula as well. And I've suggested this one for folks with respiratory spasms as well as kind of more panic stuff. Folks can take this as a panic herb and it can really help. It's a low dose herb. We have it in low dose in the formula because it's blended with other herbs. But just to mention here that you can take lobelia as a drop dose with kind of acute trauma, and it can help take the edge off really, really quickly. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
muscle spasms. We got one more here that kind of comes up commonly that Jen's going to talk about.
Yes. And we're going to call it peripheral numbness because there's certain terms, medical, we can't use. It's like that numbness in your feet, very common with blood sugar issues, if you catch my drift. There's multiple causes for this. They even classify it into different types of that type of peripheral numbness. And it's just a reference to the many conditions that involve damage to that peripheral nervous system. Okay. You remember back to the nervous system webinar, the immense network of nerves throughout the entire body and the signals that are constantly being sent in the central nervous system between the brain and spinal cord to other areas of the body. So this is where the disruption takes place. And you've probably all heard Dr. Morse mention, if you've watched his videos before, the effect acidosis has on, pretty much the entire body, on the cells, and how they actually can operate, breaking down of the membrane, which helps, the cells communicate and perform their functions. So just in general, acidosis is part of the problem, whether it's destroying the myelin sheath and disrupting the communication, which that's very important for it, or it is actually causing these tissues to swell up, have that inflammatory response and compress them further. And so you have a multitude of reasons, but really it's disrupting the signals that are being sent. Maybe there's an error in the message being sent, or a signal is being sent when it shouldn't be. That's a lot of the reason behind that type of damage to the nerves in the peripheral, nervous system. So again, creating that environment where these acids can't dominate, where they really just can't stay and linger and destroy. You want to rejuvenate those tissues, and you can repair the myelin sheaths. Of course, it takes time, but you still have to create, that environment for that to take place. Again, don't keep contributing to the acidosis that's already present. Really bolster that, healthy inflammatory response, help with absorption, build up your bones, the connective, to all that good stuff. You see, we just keep going back to the beginning. But in the meantime, while you're doing this, you got to be able to manage some symptoms so you can get on with your day-to-day life and still feel inspired to keep pushing and doing this lifestyle change.
I just wanted to kind of call back to how we were originally talking about the tie-in between the bones and detox. And beyond mineral storage, which actually the bones, I didn't mention this earlier, they act as a reservoir for essential minerals like calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium. So they're stored in the bones, right? So that's pretty critical. That's why we're constantly wanting to bring more nutrients in so the bones can store that for the body to use for many, many functions. And beyond that, another thing that they do is help with detoxification. They actually absorb heavy metals and toxins from the bloodstream and keep them sequestered to prevent them from causing harm to other organs. So as Jen's talking about this, clearing the body of acidosis, it's so important that we activate the lymphatic system through movement and herbs, and are really drawing out this deep-seated acidosis, because in that is heavy metal overload that's housed in the bones. We got to really pull that out. And the only way to do that is moving blood, moving lymph, and eliminating through the kidneys and the GI, right? So,
yes.
I think that that's really important to tie in here as we're talking about like things just going from bad to worse is really what we're talking about with the neurological system getting impacted, feeling that numbness. So really the big hard or the big push is to cleanse and draw out the acidosis. But in the meantime, one of
Yes.
the herbs that I would always recommend for this neurological pathway, numbness and tingling, is St. John's wort. It's just, that's what this herb is known for. It's not only that, it's also helps with discomfort. It's a mildly analgesic, but it's also specifically helps, and it's a warming herb. So that kind of makes sense, right? That the warming herb can help support the movement of blood and fluids kind of into the extremities so that they can be nourished and things can be picked up and cleared out. And you also mentioned the myelin sheath. So, of course, I have to also do a shout out to milky oat tops. And we do not have those in any of our Dr. Morse formulas, but they are becoming more and more well known. And it's wild oat that grows all over North America and the world. It's very much a weed that takes over whole meadows and whatnot. So you'll probably find some near you. It's Avena sativa or Avena fatua. And the tops, if you harvest them at the milky stage, they have this milkiness that's very nourishing and supportive to specifically the restoration of the myelin sheath. So check that out. Makes a really great tea. You can just harvest them fresh and infuse them in hot water. And then I always use an immersion blender to grind them up even more and then strain them out. It makes a super sweet, delicious, tasty tea for that specific indication. So, actually, this is a really interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about building muscle and doing detox and an alkaline diet. So, Jen and I collectively through our consults have met people who are bodybuilders and also just love going to the gym and really are into building muscle and strength. And sometimes it can be challenging to know how to balance a detox diet that's mostly fruit and vegetables with all of the protocols of bodybuilding, right? And so, although we can't give you all the answers here because we mostly know detox, we just want to kind of give a nod to folks who are in this particular group where I talked to one guy in particular where he's got his bodybuilding buddies. Like, this is his community. And once he wanted to detox and remove the acidosis and get some things cleared up in his body, it was harder for him to hang with his friends, right? Because getting together, but doing the routines at the gym and then going out and sharing a meal together, it's all part of the process. And like, what did you eat today? And so we're going to try to kind of tackle this a little bit. And we also just want to say we see you.
Yep.
And we know you're out there
do.
and it is challenging. It is a hard road to navigate, but essentially you're the poster child for figuring out this road with us. So Jen, I'll have you take it away.
Yeah, because it is very difficult. You see all these little communities in society now that usually, kind of center around a particular idea. And one thing that we try to build with our detoxification and whatnot is, no judging. We take everybody where they are at in the moment. And everybody's different. Everybody's dealing with something different and they need to progress at their own pace. They have their own unique goals. I mean, we're always trying to say, I need to hear about someone who did this on a fruit diet or that but no situation's going to be the same. And that same thing applies to building, muscle. If you have this particular gym routine you like, or just cleansing. So what is really, kind of the difference? Well, first you need to establish, where are you at? What are your goals? What are you really trying to accomplish? It's something that you're currently dealing with health-wise is serious. I mean, obviously you got to prioritize what's more serious. And sometimes you have to clean and, again, lack of better phrasing, but kind of break the body down a bit, break down what you've built artificially. Like Dr. Morse would say, all this bulk that really doesn't exist, naturally. You got to kind of break that down. All right, if you're focusing on that, like you're going for competitions, and whatnot, for some of the people I've talked to, whether it's through bodybuilding or powerlifting, and I know friends and family that have done this and they're really strict diets for all that. That wouldn't be the time I would say go on a fast or do an intense cleanse, but you do really need to look at what kind of supplements you're doing, understand the effects it's going to have on your body, and what are you going to do? How are you going to transition? Like, when is it kind of enough? Do you feel the toll it's taking, on your body, that stress on the cartilage,
On
your
your
tendons, your
adrenals.
ligaments, think about that muscle size, as it grows, that stress it's putting on, because again,
Mm.
cartilage doesn't have a blood supply. So yeah, it's helping that
Mm-hmm.
repair is pretty difficult. So unless you get some surgical
Absolutely.
intervention. So honestly, when to build after you, let's say this, and when to cleanse. So after you've cleansed a while, you might feel a little depleted, you might feel like you need to build yourself up. Well, go ahead, build yourself back up in a more alkaline way, maybe that 80-20. Maybe you still keep it 100% raw, but keep it totally plant-based. That I think is what really centers around, obviously some of the biggest questions we have, like how do you do the maintenance, how do you do the juggling, fact cleansing with the seasons, like you've always mentioned. And then of course the bodybuilders. One gentleman I had, he kind of set the example for his friends unintentionally, because he wanted to cleanse, he had some very pertinent, and pressing health issues he wanted to take care of, but
Mm-hmm.
he kept it plant-based, mostly raw, took his herbs, and he was still able to maintain his performance in the gym, lift, maybe even outlift some of his friends, even though he wasn't like as
Amazing.
bulky or them, but the energy he had, and still cleaning up his body and everything else in the meantime. I mean, I think any of us who have done this at some point have felt that experience. And you might feel it in that first month. It might be 5 months down the road. You don't know, but you still continue to have that alkaline diet. Don't put more acids in. But yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
you're competing, I think you'll talk to a little bit more about that and balance, because there's that, social impact to how you're feeling too. But yeah, if you really got to consider, what are you building for competition, and how are you going to help your body recover? Because sooner or later, you're going to feel those effects. Honestly,
Yeah. Well, I don't have the answers here necessarily. I do know that it's come up, and I know that folks have had it impact the way that they related to their community within that gym culture. And the few that I've spoken to about it, definitely you are the poster child, essentially, because what Jen's saying, it's really important to not only maintain that this is what you love and this is what you want to do with your body and it feels good, and also give yourself a break from that, like how we're about to talk about taking breaks and pulsing your formulas. Same thing with bodybuilding and taking breaks from that to let your body repair and recover. We always recommend, if you're not going to do anything else detox wise, it's great to do a spring and a fall cleanse, where you're doing the parasite removal and working on absorption and getting your GI moving and getting your lymph moving and all the great stuff, and the kidneys, obviously. Same thing with bodybuilding. Take a break, maybe step away from the community for some time and find another crew that is into detox, and starting that with them. And you can still go to the gym, but you probably will be more low energy as you're fasting and observing the raw fruit diet. But you are also being a poster child for another way of being that's more sustainable, I think, than just kind of
Mhm.
constantly building, where you're also giving yourself that time, and that's a way of honoring yourself as well. And so ideally your community will see that, and maybe you can all start kind of being like, okay, spring is coming, let's do this together. We're all going to do our spring cleanse. We're going to take a break from the gym for a couple months. I mean, I'll be interested to see the comments that come through with anyone that has a
Mhm.
lot of experience in the gym, and whether or not this is what we're saying here is even realistic, because I am not a gym person. Yeah, but we do have muscles by nature and high energy by nature. They're full of adaptogens, and adaptogens are really great with cellular resilience. And licorice, which is in a few of our formulas, it is in our high energy by nature formula. And a lot of bodybuilders and people who do a lot of workouts at the gym, where you end up feeling a lot of discomfort right after, the licorice root is really specific to helping with that post gym workout. Inflammatory response that you want to kind of mellow out, and so it helps with recovery time and endurance as well. So you can really kind of bulk up on some of these adaptogens like licorice, eleuthero, and ginseng, and really help with that, supporting those healthy inflammatory levels post workout, and kind of getting back in the
Yeah.
swing of things, and not just feeling totally depleted after after your hardcore workout. So
Yep. Definitely. And
yeah,
yeah,
so check out those powders. So what's next?
healthy joint formula, can that be taken long term, or should there be a break? Yeah. So Well, first of all, when we recommend it, going back a little bit to that, is when you have discomfort, want to just support that overall healthy inflammatory response, that systemic acidosis, like where you really feel like your body's, I want to say on fire, but you kind of feel dried out. And that's the best way I can put it. You just really don't feel hydrated. I mean, that's a really excellent time to take that formula. Um, I would say it's one that you could take on a daily basis, but I would say, pulse it. If you're going to consider some of these formulas long term, and especially if you're eating alkaline, like you really hit your stride, you found a routine, consider it just 1 or 2 droppers, a couple times a day, 3 to 4 times a week. You don't have to do it all the time, especially if you're really maintaining. If you're going intensely in a cleanse, or you have, injury or some other reason where you need to take it a bit more regularly, absolutely go for it for a few months. But if
Yes.
it's just to support those overall healthy levels, then yeah, just pulse them 3 to 4 times a week. And, that stretches the bottle out a little while too. So
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it is nice.
Yep.
There's so many supplements out there that contain some of these herbs too.
Yes.
So because we're really honing in on turmeric here. This is really the conversation, like where we're going with this. But before I get to turmeric, because that's in Healthy Joint Formula, I also wanted to mention a few other great herbs that help with this discomfort that you might be feeling. I oftentimes am recommending Healthy Joint for my older demographic of folks who are experiencing a lot of joint discomfort, and also for anyone that's kind of just having any chronic discomfort anywhere in their body. So
Yes.
I'm recommending this. And so one of the herbs that I love in it, besides the turmeric content, is meadowsweet. It's a beautiful, lovely tasting herb. It's meadowsweet because you'll walk into a field of meadowsweet and the whole field will smell so beautiful and sweet. It's referring to its scent. And so meadowsweet also makes a tasty tea, but it is one of the first, it's high in salicylic acid like willow, which is in our Spasm Calm formula. So meadowsweet is in Healthy Joint, and it's one of the first places that aspirin was derived from way back in the day, along with willow, which is in the Spasm Calm formula. So that's great that we have that in there, that mild analgesic support for discomfort. And then we have the turmeric. And so turmeric, yes, we're talking about pulsing this formula, not necessarily having this be your daily go-to, especially if you have some chronic discomfort and this is helping, which is great. It's better than taking an NSAID or something like that,
Oh,
right?
yes. Mm-hmm.
And those are really good at tearing up your gut or your liver. And so I always will try to ask people, please see if our Healthy Joint formula takes the edge off at least a little bit, so that you're not having to take these stronger analgesic medications if you can avoid it. That's really up to the individual. We understand that chronic discomfort can be unbearable, and we obviously don't want to stop you from finding your relief. So turmeric, back to that. So it's great for healthy inflammatory levels. It has tons of research behind it. Definitely recommend you go and research this herb. And turmeric is great as a culinary herb, so you don't have to take it in a formula. It's always good combined with something warming. It helps it to activate in the body a little bit better. So black pepper is oftentimes combined with turmeric, and there's also some of the other warming herbs, cayenne or prickly ash can be combined with turmeric as well. But black pepper really makes the most sense on a culinary in culinary terms. I have
Mm-hmm.
just kind of a fun aside where I have 2 older dogs, and I'm now making one of my dogs is like has no teeth, and so I'm having to like
All right.
make him his meals and like bake chicken and then grind the chicken up, and this whole thing. But I did this like super intense pepper and turmeric chicken, and I fed it to both the dogs. And my other dog, who's a very active dog, but she's getting old and she's slowing down, we took her to the beach the next day, and she was like a puppy. She ran
Oh.
so hard and so fast, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't believe she's like a mid-sized dog, and she's 11 now or 12, and she's just running circles around this dog she met at the beach. And I had to attribute it to that turmeric, because she got home that night and she couldn't even stand up. She
Oh,
ran so
wow.
hard and she
She
felt
was
so
just
good.
exhausted.
But she felt so good. Like the turmeric helped her really like move past whatever rickety kind of elderly bone stuff she's got going on, and just push through to this bliss state where she was just like, and I'm talking about dogs because it's easier to be compliant, I feel like, than talking about humans. But I think it's similar. I think turmeric is just that powerful. And so I highly recommend adding it to your foods and drinking it in the morning with coconut milk. You can make a turmeric milk, which is super delicious. There's great recipes online for making a turmeric paste where you combine turmeric with, you can add other adaptogen powders to it as well, ashwagandha or eleuthero, something that's great for cellular resilience. And then you add a little bit of water to that and some black pepper, and then you cook that down until it becomes a paste. And then you just add that paste with some honey to whatever milk source you like, whatever your milk or milk substitute may be. So check out that. And again, the adaptogens in the turmeric are just wonderful for eating, not necessarily taking in supplement form. Like, get those into your diet on a daily basis if you're dealing with some chronic discomfort. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because you need to absorb it from foods and getting it into your diet, not just supplementation. We get so focused on supplementation because we think, we're not absorbing enough, but really the best way to get it when you speak to a lot of professionals is through your food. And that's, again, why we focus a lot beyond lymph movement and kidney filtration is absorption in the gut. Dr. Morse says digestion, utilization, absorption, utilization, and elimination. He repeats those 4 things, quite often.
So we have a lot of folks that come to us with growths, with nodules, things like that. Is it safe to take bone and connective tissue formula during when you're trying to kind of remove growths from the body?
Yep. And we would get that a lot. I remember first starting. That was that one, and the blood circulation. They were pretty common, and Ultimate Immune.
Yep.
And it really, Dr. Morse would, say, and I hold to this too, is you kind of have to really look at the condition of the person, what's the benefit ultimately, but still you have to go back to, so we would say ultimately no at first. You got to establish your goals and you focus really on opening those elimination pathways. Go look at the kidneys, work on your gut, work on the liver, the skin, and move lymph. Yep. Or if the lymph system is particularly bogged down or just a big significant part of the problem to really abnormal, then you really need to focus on the elimination pathways in the diet, because we don't want to be aggressively moving lymph too quickly if those kidneys aren't filtering, if those, the lymph nodes are, swollen, if there are growths that are a little bit too much, those filters in those lymph nodes are clogged, they're overwhelmed. And, just trying to shove more fluid at a clogged filter is not going to necessarily really help the problem. We got to get those elimination pathways open. So
well said.
Well, the summarized answer, no, at least at first, really focus on, probably the Fab 4, lymphatically, keep it very simple and gentle, work with your diet. There will be a point where, moderate mover might be needed to really break up some obstructions and help things along. But initially, let's just start opening those elimination pathways, because that's what's so incredibly important.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Good answer.
So lastly, we're going to talk about muscle soreness. Okay. Because that's pretty common for everybody besides joint soreness. So what can you do at home? Believe it or not, the ultimate salve. This is, an awesome salve for so many things, but this is very good to put on those sore muscles, those aggravated joints, wherever you're kind of aching, go for it. Just apply it pretty liberally. You don't need much. It absorbs pretty quickly. It won't get things too greasy, so it's, at least from personal experience, I don't go anywhere without this salve. So nice. Highly recommend it. If you don't have the ultimate salve and you want to make your own, which I've tried to commit to doing, but never do ever. So how would you do that, Colleen? Tell a person like me.
Absolutely. This is like my wheelhouse. I love making herbal preparations. Obviously, it's my thing. Really, really simple to make a salve at home. You just need a couple things. You want to pick the herbs that you're interested in including in your salve, and we're going to get into those in a minute. You want to infuse those into an oil, and it's pretty easy to do. You usually I always grind my herbs up as much as I can. I always believe in the more of the herb that is available to the solvent, the better. So you want to break open those cell walls. So you don't want to put whole calendula flowers in a jar and pour oil over them, you're not going to get as much extracted into the oil that way. You want to first grind up your calendula flowers a little bit. You can even spritz them with a little alcohol and let that evaporate off, because that helps with the even faster releasing of the resins and the carotenoids from the calendula. This is a lovely marigold family member flower. If you don't know it, it's easy to grow and it's incredible for so many topical things that we'll talk about in a moment. Anyway, as an example, grind that up and pour your oil over it. And if you're just doing a folk infused oil, you're just going to cover that herb with oil. And then you're going to shake it every day. And if you want to make it quickly, you can do it in like a warm hot water bath in like a crock pot, but you definitely don't want to fry your herbs. So I usually pulse and turn on the crock pot for an hour and turn off the crock pot for an hour, that kind of thing. You just want it sitting in warm water. Some folks will put it in a sock and set it on a warm windowsill with plenty of sunlight. You don't necessarily want direct sunlight on the herbs, but if you've put your mason jar, so you're putting the herbs in a mason jar and then you put the oil in a mason jar and then you put that in a sock in a sunny window, and it can warm it up and kind of speed up that extraction process, or stick it outside. Sure, of course.
In my tropical soup. Okay.
Yes. And it's nice to use dry oils or dry herbs wherever you can, because if you use fresh herbs, then they're going to be putting some water into that oil, and that will eventually lead to mold if you don't get it all the way out. So you've got your herbal oil, and now you need to thicken it and turn it into a solid, right? You could just rub that herbal oil on your body. That's a great option. I do it all the time. I love herbal oils right after I get out of the shower. But if you do want to make it into a salve, so it's a little bit, you're adding a thickener essentially, and you're usually adding beeswax. That's the go-to that herbalists almost always do. But beeswax is wonderful. It has so many of its own incredible therapeutic attributes, and just like it's used in the hive, it's a sealant. So it's kind of holding that oil on the surface of the skin, and also it's a protectant, so it's keeping things out. It's a little bit antimicrobial, so it's just really helping to protect. If we're talking about like an open wound versus just a discomfort or a soreness. Again, it depends on the herb you're going to pick. But so how you make that is, I usually do things ratio based. A salve is typically a 1-8. So for however much your herb is in, your herbal oil is in weight, you would do 80 grams of your herbal oil. You would divide that by 8 to determine how much beeswax you would put into it. And so you would be doing how many grams, Jen?
10. I don't
10
know.
grams of beeswax. Exactly. So 10 grams of beeswax for 80 grams of herbal oil. It's all by weight. And you would melt all that together.
Yep.
Try not to overheat it. Sometimes it's nice to use a double boiler or something for this, just so that your oils aren't getting too hot. And you just want to melt the wax all the way, and then have some cute jars that you pour it into. Little 4-ounce mason jars are always great. If you don't have anything else, you can get those at the hardware store. And you can always add essential oils. So that's how you make a salve. If you want to do a lip balm, it's a 1-4. So 4 parts herbal oil to 1 part wax for a lip balm. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, just start throwing wax in your herbal oils and melting them, and you'll get a hard product at the end of the day. So good luck with that.
Yep,
okay.
ultimately.
So herbs that I recommend that are great here. Comfrey is incredible topically for open sores and sprains and breaks. You don't want it for anything deep puncture wound, because it's so good at quickly healing the skin. It's one of the best. It's called bone knit. It's really good for helping tissues regrow. And so you don't want to put it on a puncture wound, because it can heal so quickly that it will lock infection inside, and you end up with like a pustule type situation. Yeah. So comfrey is wonderful. Also for broken bones and things like that topically, it can help support the healing there. And then calendula I was talking about earlier, a beautiful resin-rich flower. The carotenoids in there are bright orange, makes a bright orange oil, and that indicates that it's antimicrobial. And then antioxidant, excuse me. That means that it's antioxidant. And then the resin is really good for supporting the healing of wounds. And then and it's also a lymph mover. It's warming. So that's lovely. It's a nice thing to put on topically with your gua sha to help move lymph. And then you've got all of your herbs that are great for supporting discomforts, whether it's muscle or joint or bone discomfort, and you want to find some relief. You can infuse kava kava, St. John's wort, lemon balm, lavender. These are all great you can use essential oils if you can find them, especially with lavender, for helping with that topical pain. So that kind of concludes our podcast on the musculoskeletal system. It's been a pleasure being with you all today. Thank you, Jenn, for joining me for another awesome detox talk.
Absolutely. This was fun. Always fun. I love the wrapping and discussion. So this is great. And thank you all for joining us and our fun being a part of it.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for being witness to our good times. All right. We hope you join us again next month for another detox talk, and we'll be doing holistic health next. So stay tuned. Thank you all and have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye.